Howdy and welcome back to Cinema Sitdown. I am your host Nolan, and today we watch the 2004 Kung Fu action movie Kung Fu Hustle. We'll talk more about it after this intro. All right, and before we get too far into the movie, who am I joined by today?
Andrew Zellner.
Isaiah Townley.
Addie Miller.
All right. Now, this movie was produced by, directed by, and is starring Stephen Chow, and it was made on a pretty humble, I would say, $20 million budget for what this movie actually is. It is action-packed. It's got some crazy CG, some crazy set and costume designs, and some really good cinematography. It's kind of a brilliant movie, really, and it's also like very stupid and very fun to watch. So none of you guys have seen it or had seen it before today.
No.
What were your like initial thoughts kind of going in?
I had like no expectations going in, honestly. So I guess I wouldn't say I was. I guess I was surprised, but it was like, because I was just. Like you said, like very fun, very kind of silly, but also kind of sick at the same time. There's a lot of like the action scenes are like super well directed, choreographed, and shot, but they're also like super goofy. And I thought that was such a cool part of the thing. I feel like we don't see like goofy fight scenes like this, or it's like fun camera work like in this movie like anymore. I feel like we don't get very much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I picked up initially too, is that I was like, okay, this is gonna be a movie where they're totally fine with just doing wacky stuff, and so I was really excited for it because it starts out like almost a typical kind of gangster movie. And I was like, I'm totally fine with this too. We kind of just watched one on yours, but then they start doing stuff.
The thousand gang members show at the beginning. It's like, okay, something's a bit different here.
It just starts to escalate to the point where you are still surprised, but you're like waiting for it to come the entire time.
Something's happening here. This is too normal.
Every serious scene, you're like, okay, someone's gonna get like thrown through a wall or something like that. So yeah, I was already hooked from like the first 10 minutes easily.
I feel like it kept breaking like each like scene or even just like few minutes to where it was like at some point it was like semi-serious, and then all of a sudden it would just have some whack ass thing happen and then go back to serious with like a cool fight, but then it would mix in with an even goofier fight, and I don't know what I expected. It was not this, but
Yeah, I think all I said was that like, hey, semester's been kicking my ass. I need to sit down and watch a brainless movie. And I would say that this is maybe not a brainless movie. On rewatch, I think that it actually has some emotional depth. Like, I know we usually don't talk when we watch these movies. I tried to like encourage it this time because there's just so much to talk about. Yeah. But like the lollipop scenes, the flashbacks, like they were actually very sweet and very moving, and I didn't remember that. But I think it adds so much to the movie, even if it was kind of.
Well, that's the thing with like a lot of modern movies, is they think that if they just have a really serious and gritty like plot, that we're gonna care. And that's what, you can be silly and still have emotional like pulling moments, it's really just about the characters. And even though it is a silly movie, all the characters are really unique and full of personality, and you're like, yeah, I can get, I understand this guy. They have these scenes where people are just interacting and having fun a little bit, so you actually care for these people, even if they're getting like flipped over and like smacked through a wall. You're like, I kind of actually feel bad for this guy a little bit. Like, I actually kind of care for Donut as he's like he's like flopping like spears around and stuff. I'm like, actually, I don't want him to get hurt. Like, be careful, dude. Like,
yeah, and it sounds like maybe a Kung Fu Hustle fight scene is playing out in the room next to
us.
That's what I was
hearing.
But yeah, I mean, the characters really, like you said, like movies try to be like too serious. Like you take like a John Wick where it's like his wife died, his dog died, his friend died, now he's dying. Like all of it But then this is just like kid tries to stop this little girl getting robbed of her lollipop. He gets made fun of and pissed on, and then he's the kung fu god.
You know.
And then he is Kung Fu God.
I
Yeah.
And
think-
it works better.
I think we could all relate a
We
little.
all can.
I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I remember
haven't
getting
we
pissed on
all?
my boss.
We've all been there.
In all of the situations.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We've been the little girl, we've been the little boy, and we've been the bullies.
Yeah, I was
Wow,
gonna say.
that's
I
deep.
haven't.
Yeah, no, I think you have.
I'm the best person in the world. I mean, who hasn't like fought like evil assassin musician people that can summon like undead soldiers and swords and stuff?
Yeah.
Well,
That's the thing. Is like this gives that really childlike feeling of like fighting in your room, and you're like jumping on your bunk bed and like doing crazy stuff, and in your mind, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
you know. It felt like, even though obviously it's not realistic, there's still like there's movement. You can feel the movement. Everything does, to a certain extent, make kind of sense. Like there's nothing that I was like, well, that felt cheap. Like I was just like, yeah, sure, I can. Like I don't know, maybe. It was like weirdly illogically like logical. Like they
Yeah.
made sure everything flowed
Yeah.
correctly, I guess.
It's like weirdly I think that comes down to like the sound effects
Yeah.
and like the visual effects, because they're kind of hard carrying a lot of those big
Yeah.
impact moments.
Right.
Because otherwise, if it was just like, you know, substandard boring sound, it'd be like, okay, well, this is
Yeah.
complete and total crap.
Weightless,
This is not happening.
yeah.
Yeah. But it feels like there is that weight to like every strike and stuff, especially when they're doing those like big, like, again, breakthrough wall type stuff.
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of movies that are intentionally goofy kind of have trouble with is that in comedy you can do super over the top stuff, but that super over the top stuff still needs to be consistent. And I think,
Right.
like you guys were saying, like this movie kind of nails that, where it's like it has a set of illogical facts just as it has a set of logical facts.
Right.
And it just, I don't know, it just feels like you're surprised at something that happens in every scene, but you're never like, oh, this doesn't really fit.
Right. It all feels cohesive.
Cohesive, yeah. So at that kind of, just talking about the musician guys and just thinking of that scene, did you guys have a favorite character? I know it's hard to pick. Maybe top 2, top 3.
I was gonna say, I think I really like that the musician dude's fight scenes.
They
Like
were
I
pretty
think
awesome.
that power set with like them both playing like in sync, and then like the ghost sword, the ghost skeleton dudes.
Yeah.
That's just the coolest thing. That just appeals to me on like like again that kid level is like, oh, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. This movie would have been the coolest movie I've ever seen when I was 5 years old. And now at 20 years old,
It's still the
this
coolest
is the
movie
coolest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the landlady was probably my favorite. She was like unstoppable for no reason. Like she was I can tell you also my least favorite character was the dude who had his cheeks out the whole entire time.
Dude.
Pull up your
I was
pants.
gonna
I don't
say, dude.
understand.
No reason for that either.
No,
No
no,
reason at
it
all.
didn't,
He just-
it
he
didn't
just
come
has it
back to
out.
that.
Yeah.
Just has it out.
Yeah, and so that there's definitely some things. This movie came out in 2004, and apparently it was set in 1940.
Apparently.
Whatever,
That's
man.
what, that's what the synopsis says. I don't believe it.
I mean, I guess it could have been. You
It
know,
could have been.
maybe.
Could take
but-
place anytime post car invention.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is this movie definitely dates itself a little bit with jokes like that, and with the Taylor having several like very like common gay stereotypes. Like he literally has pink underwear you can see like through his shorts.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's 2004, but also like you don't have to have stuff like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at what point do you really need that?
Especially when it's like when he's like, when it's such like minor details about it. It's like, this was not, you could have made him like a different character.
Yeah, like it really didn't matter because so many of the things that the Taylor character does stands on its own.
Right.
Like he has the rings
He's got
on
the
his
rings,
forearms,
yeah.
and he does like crazy cool combat stuff with
Yeah.
it. And for on one hand, it's like, it's interesting that they didn't just make him a total throwaway joke. This is our gay character. But then on the other hand, like, if you're gonna have these other things, like, why have the
Why bother?
stereotypes
Right.
that he
Yeah.
plays into? And so it's just kind of weird.
It's weird.
Weird to do that. But Yeah, I mean, on the topic of characters, the Taylor was one of my favorites just because I thought the rings were
I was gonna say
really
that
cool.
that
Those
was
rings are
my
sick.
favorite. As soon as I saw it, I was like, well, I actually just saw Shang-Chi like recently as
Yeah.
well, so I was like, yes, like I wanted more fight scenes with that kind of stuff. So I was really hyped when I saw that. I think that was just a really awesome like fight scene every time he was in it. I love that guy.
How do you feel about our main character?
I think he's very interesting. Honestly, it almost feels like he's like not the main character for a large like for like pretty much the first like opening half almost. He feels like kind of like another like just like another kind of side character almost. That's kind of I feel like this movie doesn't really he doesn't really feel like a central main character, and I think that's a very interesting way to do it because you have like the three kung fu dudes at the beginning that are like, oh, these are kind of our central characters, but then you have like the landlady and her husband, and then you have like the axe gang dudes, and it's like, oh, there's just like, it's an interesting way where it's just kind of like a collection of characters rather than one like central character until we like eventually focus on him like around the middle half of it.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting choice.
I think it's an interesting contrast, especially to just like some of the massive kung fu movies, because you look at like Ip Man and like all of the like Bruce Lee movies
Right.
and the Jackie Chan kung fu kind of comedy movies. It's like they're in every scene.
And they're like the central character.
Yeah, and so for this movie to have kind of a more ensemble take, I think it's just really interesting, especially because our main character is kind of an unlikable.
No, he's not really a good
straight
dude
up
for most of it.
evil guy
Yeah.
for most of it. But yeah, anyone else?
I had the same kind of reaction where I wasn't sure who the main character was. I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is the guy. It was the guy. Spoiler, the guy who gets his head chopped off. I thought he
green-
was.
I did think it was
I
him,
thought
too.
he was the main
Yeah.
guy. So when that happened, I was like, oh my god, where is this going?
What happened?
And I thought, like, because the thing is, it starts with this cold open with like the crocodile gang getting killed off. So I just thought like the bad axe murderer guy. I thought he was just another throwaway character. But as the story goes on, I was really happy where they went with them. I thought it was a really cool arc, and I'm a fan of like tough guys who like slowly kind of rebirth and like have become nice and like merciful and stuff like that. So I'm a sucker for that trope. So
Yeah, I agree because it took me a second to figure out who the main character was, and so I was like, oh, it's no, okay, okay, no, I guess it's not. And it just like kept going, but I did like him though. I will say at the very end, I'm a little upset that like he shaved his face because he looked really good with facial hair, and I was like, dude, you're hotter with facial hair, keep it. But anyway, that's not really
Can't have
besides the
facial
point.
hair and be a
Picture
kung fu
behind you.
master.
I guess that's true.
Him and facial hair running from the
Okay,
landlady.
that's not a very good photo, but
What do you mean that's
Just
not?
imagine-
That's like
Photo.
that's the perfect representation of the movie right there.
just imagine no knives and maybe no blood and
And no
Normal
landlady
no
in the back.
Looney Tune looking run. Anyway.
Yeah. On the topic, did you guys have a scene that really stood out to you? Because when I talk about this movie, which is pretty often because I love this movie, if somebody's never heard of it, I am like, well, if you want to see like what a representation of this movie is like, I'll show them the chase scene with the
see the chase
landlady.
scene,
So I'd say that's probably my favorite. My favorite that doesn't need context, I guess I should say. But is there one that stuck out to you guys as like this is the scene that really makes this movie for me?
I don't know. That's really hard because I feel like there are so many like those. Because I feel like every scene has kind of something to really enjoy about it, whether it's like the fighting or like the more sincere moments. I feel like you said that. I think this chase scene is just. It feels so emblematic of the movie's like overall vibe and tone because it is very silly, but also like it's kind of cool at the same time as like as how it's like shot and stuff. Where it's clearly shot in a green screen, but it still feels like it's not just like a static shot of them running towards the camera. It has some dynamicism. I don't think that's a word.
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
That like dynamic feel to it that I feel like a lot of other movies with like a green screen don't really attempt.
Yeah.
I think. Oh,
no, you
my
go
bad.
ahead.
No, I think I already said this, but the scene where he's wanting to fight everybody, and then they just keep getting more
More
muscular.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's a little kid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I kind of wish that humor was a little bit more dragged throughout the movie. I don't know. I feel like it kind of really did at the beginning, but then it just kind of like slowly became a little bit less. Like it still had the comedy, but it didn't have like those kind of like throwaway like joke things. And I think those are really funny. But like that just scene in itself, I don't know why, but I think that was hilarious.
I'm gonna be real. I'm sorry, Andrew and Nolan, but I did not like that scene. I could not stand that scene at all. The Looney Tunes like running animation
Oh my
too
God.
much.
It's so funny.
I do really like when our main characters like first coming into like their the Axe Gang's like headquarters or whatever, and it's so dark and you have all like the blue lights and stuff overhead, and it's kind of like, you know, kind of getting those like Dutch angles where it's like turning a little bit as he's coming in, and he's like, it spins around and he's like kind of dancing to the music for a second, and just like the actual boss like layer that he has just looks really cool. And I don't know, I just love every scene that was in their actual headquarters. I thought that was really awesome.
Set designs were really awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like the Axe Gang headquarters, the little like city street looked really cool. And Pigsty, of course, is just such an interesting little like dynamic place. Like it feels very alive, even though it looks kind of like
all of it feels very lived in. Like it's like kind of, it's like dirty, it's kind of grimy.
Yeah.
But like it looks the part.
Yeah, well, they go to Pigsty like, you know, like 3 times for 3 different battles, but each time it feels very different.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think it's probably a budget thing. They were trying to kind of use the space up as much as they could, but I never felt like, oh, we're just back in Pigsty, because each battle utilized different parts of that, I don't know, town, you know. So each time it was still unique, and they were finding new ways to do with stuff, and we were even trying to call it like, oh, I wonder if they're going to use the little hanger wires thing, and we're like, I don't know, and then they do it, and it's like, I don't know, I really like how creative they were with this one location, you know.
So with that, the Pigsty, it eventually ends up getting pretty much destroyed by the Buddha palm technique, after it gets ravaged by the toad technique. Characters have like these special abilities, and did you have one of those that you thought was the most interesting, most cool? And if you could have one of your own, what do you think it would be?
Well, I kind of already answered like the style I would like the musician dude.
The musician guy.
I was gonna say that's
That was
just
cool.
that's so cool. That appeals to me on like a crazy level. Just 'cause I think skeletons are like the coolest thing ever. I don't know. If I think I would like something similar where I have like, you have like the phantom something where I throw a punch, but then the punch is like a phantom punch and it goes and attacks someone. I think something like that would be sick. I don't know what I would call it, but
I gotta go the same. It was just so cool.
It's
But
the
like
cool-
the
it's-
hard
it's
thing,
the coolest
and the
thing
music
ever.
is like going and during the whole thing.
Yeah.
It is just so cool. Easily the coolest ability.
I will say, I think all of them are cool. I hated the toad style.
I don't like the toad
Oh,
style.
that was
No.
so
Toad style's
gross.
gross.
I hated the
Not
toad
like that.
style. I was like, yeah, there's a body horror kind of thing coming
Yeah.
up, and like I feel like that was maybe like a misdirect for you guys, but like no,
I
I
thought you were
hate
talking
it.
It
about
is
the
body
foot
horror.
thing. I thought that's what you were talking
I
about.
didn't think the
that
foot
was
was that
gross.
bad.
That's
You
not
didn't
really-
think that was bad?
I don't think
compared to
that's
the
that bad.
toad,
I think it's
no.
cartoony
Their
enough.
feet were completely smushed.
That guy had a neck that was big.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just come to a conclusion that they both are really bad. But,
Yeah.
like, they're both really gross.
So what was your favorite?
I think I also have to say
The music
music.
is so
is-
cool.
I
It's so
do
cool.
kind of wish that, like, we didn't always see, like, the sword things go out. Like, I thought it was a little bit cooler when, like, you started seeing things cut. And obviously it was like, oh, yeah, so the guy's playing the music and something is, like, cutting it. And I kind of wish it's, like, we didn't see a dagger go towards them every single time. I feel like that could have been kind of cool of them, like, oh, what are they, like, fighting, you know, kind of thing for a little bit longer. But I do think that was cool. If I had a power, I think I would, like, call bats and just have them, like, pick me up and fly, you know, kind of thing. That
Bat
doesn't really
style.
help me except
Get that
get me
bat
out of a
style.
sticky
Forbidden
situation.
bat style. I
Yeah.
like that. That's
That'd be
Maybe
tough.
they'll like go and attack people, you know. I don't know, something like that.
I like that. I also like that, like with what you were saying, the powers seem to be kind of more like visually representative of what they actually are. Because whenever we first see the musician guys, it's just like slices, and you see the like jug of water get cut. You see the cat
Sorry,
live
Caleb.
off screen. That cat
poor cat.
survived.
That cat lived. No, you got better.
All of the important stuff is in the top half of a cat. It's fine.
Maybe.
No, it's fine. But yeah, I thought that was so cool. It's probably my favorite as well. But now we are probably gonna have to wrap it up. What do you guys think out of 10?
I'm thinking like 7.5, 8.
Same.
I'm feeling there. I think that's a healthy amount because I think there are elements where like, okay, probably do this a little bit better, but I think this is a solid, super enjoyable movie that I'll definitely be revisiting at some point in the future.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go on your higher end there. I think I'm gonna give it like an 8 to 8.5. I think it set out to do exactly what came out.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was surprised when this movie was made. They're like, yeah, that's what we wanted. So, and I respect that. So I respect the vision.
2. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, I'm totally joking.
Dang.
I probably won't go as high as you guys, but maybe like a 6, I'd say. Like maybe I'll like watch it again, like with a friend. But I mean, it wasn't really like my thing, but it was definitely entertaining and fun to watch.
Yeah, that's the thing with it is like, it's not a masterpiece, but it's so fun to just like sit with friends and watch it.
This is like a perfect like friend movie to watch at like a party.
Yeah.
This is like the perfect movie to put on just as like when you're hanging out.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I'm gonna give this movie a solid 9 out of 10. It would be a 10 if there weren't the couple moments where all of us were like, "Whoa."
That was a little weird.
Maybe not that part.
Not that part.
But other than that, I think it, like as you said, Isaiah, it has a mission and it accomplishes that mission and rated on that mission 9 out of 10. But that's gonna be all we've got today for Cinema Sit Down. I have been your host Nolan, and I've been here with
Andrew,
Isaiah,
And Addie.
and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.